I am currently in the middle of building an Audi TT225 as well as a B5 S4. These are very different cars and they are in very different stages of the build process. Just so happens we're waiting on show-stopping parts to show up in the mail for both of them. I figured now was as great of a time as any to give an update on both of the cars and introduce them to those who are new to the channel. I'll also talk about my roadmap for the current projects and what parts I've got on the way for each of them. We've had a lot of newcomers to the channel lately, and this is a great opportunity to show them what we're all about and what we do here. Before we get too in-depth into the cars themselves, I want to introduce myself to people who are new to the channel. Hello, my name is Hunter. Some brief background on myself. Graduating in 2021, I am a computer engineer by trade, and I've spent most of my life growing up with YouTube and obsessing about cars at the same time. I've come to love learning and making videos, so it was natural that I would start filming myself building and working on these cars as I gained both time and money to do so. Over the coming years, as I get my hands on more and more cars that I've always dreamed about, I'm going to chronicle all of my builds, mods, and learning experiences on this channel. I am not attached to any specific brand or make and model of a car. I think so many different areas of the world and so many different companies have a tremendous amount to offer from an automotive standpoint, and I want to experience it all. If any of that seems interesting to you, consider liking and subscribing. Let's talk about the first car on the channel and the reason I started it in the first place. For those of you who haven't seen it, this is my TT225. The car is fully bolt-on and is currently running a custom tune which pretty much maxes out the stock KO4 turbo that's currently in the car. Recently, I've put on nice wheels, sticky tires, upgraded sway bars, and updated the transmission with a CTS turbo short shifter and Diesel Geek bushings. As of now, my ultimate goal for this car is to set it up for my local road course this summer. I'll eventually be putting a larger turbo on this car as well, and there are a few things I'd like to do with the car before we get to that point. I think running a bigger turbo on stock internals is a bit of a waste of money, so my first job is to hunt for another 1.8 to build outside the car. It's kind of a weird time to be shopping in general for anything automotive due to the market, but once I find a decent one, I can start sourcing all the internals and I'll be throwing it in the car. Now let's talk turbo plans. I've done quite a bit of research and I'm leaning towards a GT28 RS Disco Potato Turbo. This should hopefully put me around 350 horsepower, and I think this would be a really fun setup for this car and keep it at a level where I could still daily drive the car and enjoy it around town. Like I said, I don't want to turn this car into a drag car, I just want to make it a tremendously fun daily driver that I can also take to road course events. Before we go ahead and add power, I want to get suspension, cooling, and brakes sorted. I've got performance pads and rotors on the way for the next video. I will eventually be putting a big brake kit on the car, but I've got to replace the pads and rotors now anyways, so it'll be a greater enhancement for the time being. I also have a set of coilovers and a bigger intercooler kit on the way, and there will be episodes on each of those in the next few months. So other than shipping, you might be asking, what's holding this car up? Glad you asked. The last video was about upgrading the ignition coils and spark plugs to fix some random misfires the car was having as it entered boost. My fix fixed the constant misfire while entering boost, but I ended up running into a much larger problem about a week later. I was running around and driving the car like normal when all of a sudden it started to misfire worse than it ever had. The car sounded like a tractor. I pulled over and played with the wiring harness that connects to the coils themselves, and it confirmed my suspicion. My ignition wiring harness is on its way out for the TT. This engine is known to go through these harnesses due to its closeness to the turbo, and it's the hottest part of the engine, but this is one of the more annoying things to diagnose and fix because electrical problems tend to be random. This issue is similar to when you have an old pair of wired earbuds and one of the sides only works when you bend the cable in a certain way. Except unlike that, where music is only available on one side, this has to do with one of my cylinders not working. Thankfully, I've got a pretty good kit on the way to rewire this, but it's going to take a little bit to get here. After we vanquish this electrical gremlin, we'll go ahead and put bigger brakes, coils, and a better intercooler on the car. I'm also likely going to wrap the TT this summer. Now let's talk about the latest addition to the channel, the S4. This is a car that I've idolized and wanted for a very long part of my life, and I'm still very much so deciding which direction I want to take it. I bought this car completely broken. In fact, I couldn't even test drive it when I bought it. So far, it has mostly been a restoration project. I've replaced a lot of the failed rear suspension, found some vacuum leaks, and gotten the car running again. I've updated both the fuel and ignition systems with bigger injectors, modernized coils, and a whole slew of upgrades from the cosmetic aspects of the car, such as paint restoration, ducktail spoilers, better brakes, and whatnot. I'm also working in the background to replace the timing belt and motor mounts to set the car up for further success. This car is currently in the process of receiving a custom remote tune through a company called Motiza. I have uploaded the base map they sent over, and I have been driving the car around a bit. The added boost is incredible, but it's made a few problems that the car had a lot more present. After I sent the log to Motiza last week, they noticed a few things that I'm I'm going to need to address before they can send me an updated map. We noticed that both of my pre-catalytic converter O2 sensors need replacing so that the car can properly manage its air-fuel ratio. It's looking like a lot of the random stuttering the car was having during zero vacuum and zero boost was caused by the car not being able to properly read its own AFR. That means it wasn't able to adjust fueling, and it would explain why it was only able to function well at full throttle. This would also explain the intermittent P1131 error code that I've been receiving. These are on the way, and that will be one of the next things we do to the S4. I'm also rebuilding the ABS computer in this car in the time being, and that should fix a lot of the ABS problems and warning lights that I have. As far as future plans for this car, I plan on eventually putting larger turbos or a bigger single on this car. But I'm still very early in the stages of deciding how much I want out of it. I really do want to enjoy this car for what it is with a little bit of a budget build currently. I think seeing what the car can do with KO3s and enjoying the car for what it is currently before we go too crazy with the bigger turbos is a really good idea. So as of now, my first and foremost goal is to make the car run and drive well and make sure that it's overall healthy after the years of neglect. Then we can consider bigger turbos. Once we get the tune sorted out, I'll be updating the suspension with some coilovers and throwing on some more basic mods like a bigger intercooler, better intake, and updating the shifting system. The only holdup for the S4 this week is we're waiting on shipping for my O2 sensors to get here before we can really continue the tuning process and drive the car around a lot. I've also ordered a pressure testing kit so I can check both of the cars for vacuum leaks. Similar to the TT, once it's running and driving incredibly, I will be either painting or wrapping the car to make it look even prettier. Overall, I have a lot planned for these cars, and I'm sure this channel is just going to keep expanding as I get more room to have more projects. Like I said earlier, I'm not attached to German cars, I'm not attached to American cars, I like cars in general. There's a whole list of cars that I want to own and work on throughout my life, and I'm going to chronicle it all here. This isn't a short-term hobby for me, this is something I'm going to continue to do the rest of my life because I really enjoy it. I hope you're as excited as I am. I want to take this time to especially thank everyone who's new to the channel and those who have supported me from the beginning. We'll have a more normal episode this next week after all the parts come in. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing for more. As always, thank you again for watching. Have a wonderful day.